into the game development with Unity class. So this first class will be simple. We're not going to dive into Unity and coding straight. We'll first discuss what game development is, what Unity is about, why do you need to learn Unity, pros and cons, what type of games have we developed with Unity, things like that, just to further more pique your interest in the course that you've chosen. Okay, I don't think I need to explain game development. Game development is basically, oh, sorry, before I even go into all that, let me introduce myself. So my name is Rashid, and I'm a AR/VR game developer for MTN Nigeria. So my job is to create augmented reality content, virtual reality content, and web and mobile games for the company. I may be wondering, how is game development as a job in Nigeria or even outside? So I would say game development in this country is definitely growing because there are a lot of studios coming up. Not that much yet, but they are definitely on the rise. And they pay a lot of money, at least compared to other fields that I'm aware of. So what I mean is, for something like game development, it's not that saturated yet in this country. Let me give an example. If you were to look at web development for, as an instance, today, if you want to hire a web developer, you can find like 100 or 200. In fact, if you have a web developer working in a company and they said he wants to leave, the next day you find another web developer. I hope all of you can agree to that. But it's not the same for game development and Blender to some extent. Meaning those who learn this skill have a leverage. So if you learn this skill, you'll be like out of top 100 that can be employed in this country, and there's not much competition. So that's one of the pros of learning game development as well. And I said, since it's not that saturated and there are not a lot of people in this space, you can command higher pay or higher salary, because even the companies hiring you don't know what to bench your salary on. So if you go to a company now and tell them, oh, game development, augmented reality, virtual reality, they just be like, wow, 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 wow. And they are more likely to pay you more than regular developers now. So that's one of the reasons I suggest people to look for skills that are currently trending, like game development, augmented reality, virtual reality, because these skills are not common yet. So the first people to jump into them are able to command higher pay from whichever company they work for. So that's one. So why I started game development, as I said, basically partly because of the higher pay, and also because I started as a normal web developer at the beginning. So I learned web development, and at some point I learned Blender. And I thought of, oh, how can I combine these two skills, coding and 3D? And the best way to do that is to venture into game development as we are today. So game development in this country definitely pays quite well. I think the lowest you can get from a company right now, as last time I was aware, was at the very least, I would like to say 500, but at the very least, 300 is the lowest you would see. 300 is the lowest you'll see, but ideally it should be 500 upward. And depending on how good you are, you can bargain for 1 mil and above. And outside the country, we all know that how that works is in dollars. So you earn even way more if you're working remotely. So it's a good career path. And one of the disadvantages, As I said, it is not saturated, meaning not a lot of people are into it. But that also means not a lot of opportunity are available. It's not every telco that is into game development. As I know right now, it's just MTN. Although Airtel is trying with their 5G, Etisalat is basically dead. I'm sorry. Glow also working something out, but not a contender yet. So if to find job of game development in this country can be a little bit taxing, but once you get it, you've gotten it, and it will definitely be good. So let's go back to the main topic. So why game development? As I said before, the reason why you go into game development is for creativity and problem solving. It creates millions of jobs. So for in game development, there are different sections. They won't just hire only you. They need a designer, a programmer, a blender artist, a UI UX person. So a lot of other people come together in game development to create that single game or multiple games that you see. And the impact of game development is also beyond entertainment. You use it in education, use it in healthcare, interactive experiences, and there's teamwork and innovation. So what I mean by use it in other fields is that in education, an example will be, what will I use as an example? Duolingo. Duolingo is basically a game, but just specific to education. Healthcare, I can't name one in particular, but they are usually VR experiences. And aside from all this, you get to create cool experiences that most people don't have access to. You are doing something different than everyone else. Okay, so why are we choosing Unity as our game engine? Before we, I like to explain what a game engine is. So a game engine is basically where you create, manage, and run your game. That's the simplest form I can put it. So it's a platform where you can create, manage, and run the games that you create. So they make it easy for you. So instead of me opening Visual Studio Code or Notepad++ and start trying to code everything from scratch, with a good game engine, I scrap a whole lot of unnecessary steps and just move forward to the actual game creation. So why Unity in particular? I think the popular game engines we have now are Unity, Godot, Unreal Engine, Game Maker. There are one or two other more, but I can't remember their name. But popular ones, Unity, Godot, Unreal Engine, Game Maker. And the reason why we're choosing Unity is for the options I listed on the left hand side here. One, Unity is a versatile engine, meaning you can use it to create 2D games and 3D games. You can also use it to create movies if you want. That's a whole other course on its own. You can use it for augmented reality, virtual reality. Sure, you can use the other engines too, but Unity basically is available of doing everything you want to do. And for each of those things, there is a template for a beginner to start with. So free and paid option. There's a free option for Unity and there's a paid option. And honestly, you won't even need the paid option until you want to deploy a project publicly. So you have to you people only pay to remove all made in Unity from their games. And the other reason you pay is for version control. So version control is like GitHub for normal developers where you store your code so you can easily get it back anytime you want. Another reason for choosing Unity is because it's used widely by indie developers and big studios. And this reason might be the biggest reason that we have. Because if a lot of people use a game engine, what that means is there's a lot of resource and conversations around that game engine. So if I'm stuck in somewhere in Unity, I can simply open YouTube and search, how do I do this in Unity? I'll easily find like 100 content on just that particular thing. I cannot say the same for Game Maker. I cannot say the same for Godot. Unreal Engine, I also can't say the same. So Unity has the most available content for a game engine out of all the game engines that we mentioned. So for whatever issues you are facing on Unity, someone somewhere has had the same issue and someone somewhere has solved that issue. So it will be easier for you to progress. If you have an issue in Unreal Engine now, yes, you can try your best through YouTube, but it's very hard to find how to solve that specific issue. Or even if you find one, you cannot find two, three, or four other content that you can compare it with and see which one is the best way to continue with the issue that you have. So the fact that it's being used widely by indie developers and big studios is one of the reasons why most people use Unity, because it just makes things easier. When you have issues, you can easily find other people that can solve it. Even in our XR community, I think almost everyone there uses Unity. If you have an Unreal Engine problem now, maybe just one or two people can help you at best, and that's not enough. So you want to join a game engine that has a growing community or has a fully grown community. So when you have issues, they can easily help you out of it. But obviously, when you are good in that game engine, you can now switch to another game engine if you want, just to have knowledge of both game engines. But at least for people that are starting, Unity is usually the best choice. Multi-platform, as we mentioned earlier, you can deploy one single game to PC, mobile, PS5, on a virtual reality headset, and on the web. I think there are even more options, some options I've never explored. So you don't need to create 5 games to deploy it in 5 places. You just create one game, and when you want to export that game, you just choose where you want to export the game to. So it makes your whole workflow easier. Okay, so next, let's look at games that have been created with Unity. We have Hollow Knight, Among Us. Let me search for these games online for you so you know what they look like. Okay. So, because one of the issues most people have is, or they say, Unity's, what's it called? Unity's performance or quality is not as good as Unreal Engine. Yes, to an extent, Unreal has better quality, but for a beginner, I assure you that does not matter. And depending on how good you are, it still doesn't matter. Just small difference to actual game studios. But for me and you, Unity is good enough for whatever quality you want to render. So a lot of people may not know Hollow Knight. It means I've never played Hollow Knight, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people know about Among Us. And Among Us was created using Unity. This game as well, Batman Arkham. This is a VR game, by the way. Arkham VR was also created using Unity. So let me see, what should I open? Give me a moment. Let me just find gameplay. Yeah, so speaking from experience, this game is a very, very good and interactive game, and it was created using Unity. And there are multiple games like that that you've played, and you probably didn't know that they were made using Unity. So Unity is a very good game engine to start with and build games. Before I continue, I would like to know if everyone is still following. I can get a thumbs up or a message before I move on. Okay, Anthony, do you have a question? Or you're just raising to let me know.
I'm just waiting to let you know.
All right, thank you. Okay. So as I mentioned before, Unity is used by a lot of game developers and game studios. So aside from the tutorials that you will easily find, you will also find a large supportive community and a lot of assets. So what assets means is uh, a lot of 3D content for you to use in your game without having to start from scratch. Let me open the asset store. So this is why I needed everyone to learn Blender before we started this class. Not so for you to create your assets. If you want to, that's fine. But the reason why you need to learn Blender first is to have an idea of what 3D is all about and how to make changes to those 3D objects. So once you have an idea of what 3D is about, it's now your decision to not say, oh, when I'm creating my game, do I want to create those 3D assets for my game? Or do I want to find resources online to use instead? And sure enough, if you're doing a personal project and you have a lot of time in your hands, you can create those assets by yourself. But for most of the time, and if you're working for a company, you don't have that luxury. So you rather use 3D assets on different platforms to speed up your work process. So this is Unity Asset Store and it's filled with almost everything you will need for your game. As you can see, you can download environments, can download characters, can download props, animations, vehicles, and different GUIs, graphic game objects. Let me open one. Some are free and some are paid for. So depending on how rich you are, you choose your poison. See, this one now is $800. Can't be Misha. But basically, you can, let me see. Yes, so as I was saying, you can come to websites like this and find free assets that you can use for your game, even use for a client project, depending on what the project is about. So you don't really have to start anything from scratch. You don't really have to create any game objects from scratch. So you can see now if I want to create a first-person controller game, for those who don't know what a first-person controller game is, let me just search one up for you now. Also, an example of a first-person controller game would be Call of Duty. Ah, same you. We're not talking about Drake and J. Cole here. Okay. So these are examples of first-person controller games, and they're using the same assets I just showed you guys now. So it's basically playing the game like you are the one in front of the camera, in short. That's basically what first person is. So an example of first person is Call of Duty. Which other game is first person that I know of? Let me see. The finals. A lot of people may not know the finals, but the finals is also first person to an extent. Then we have third person shooter games. In a third person shooter game, it just basically means you can see your character moving while playing the game. An example of a third person shooter game would be Fortnite. What else? Who plays PUBG here? Is PUBG third person or first person? I don't know. I've never played PUBG in my life. But basically, a first person shooter game, you only see your weapons. And for a third person controller game, you're able to see your character's mesh and body, basically. Let me go back, find my way back. So as I was saying, Unity makes it easy for beginners to start without having to create literally anything for them to get started. So they have free assets from uh, 3D characters to environments to animations to first person controllers. Anything you can think of that you need in your game, someone somewhere has created it and added it to the asset store for you to get started. All right, let me find my way back. All right. So now we're going to weigh out the pros and cons and the challenges to consider. First one is advanced learning curve. To be honest, this is really not a challenge for a beginner. Because I said the way we take this course, everyone will be able to start and create games as simple as possible. This is only a challenge when you're trying to become a professional, because there are things that you have to consider and different ways you have to create your games, step by step processes that you have to follow. If you are creating games for a game studio or a large company, you can't just do things anyhow you like. You need to follow particular processes. Performance issues. Performance issues only comes in when you're creating large projects and your system cannot carry those large projects. So at some point in your career, you need a PC upgrade or you need to create a workstation, whichever one you're able to afford. But as a beginner, we can also get this is not really a big issue right now. As long as you have a graphics card, you should be fine as a beginner. Extra tools required. As I said, this is also for when you're creating big games like Call of Duty or Among Us. But for a beginner, you really don't need all these extra tools. Paid upgrades is also when you're creating projects for a big company. Because big companies don't want to see made with Unity in their games. They rather pay for the licenses to remove that made with Unity. So that's never your concern because it's the company that will pay for it. But for a normal game developer like you and I, if we're creating games, we can leave made with Unity there. It doesn't affect anything. I'm pretty sure you've seen a lot of games on Play Store. You've downloaded some games that you see made with Unity. So it's really not a challenge for a beginner as well. It's only for big companies that don't want to show made utility. Okay, so let's look at some myths and facts about game dev. Okay, so People think that you need to be a coding expert to start game development. And I can promise you right now, it is a big lie. In fact, the very first game I'm going to create in this class will be a game that does not require coding. And I don't want to imbibe a culture right now, but with the help of all this AI, ChatGPT, Grok, and the likes, it will makes it easier to an extent to not even write most of these codes. All you just need is understanding of what the code does to continue what you're doing. So it makes your process simpler. But you don't need to be an expert in coding or know how to code. Like, okay, obviously you need to know how to code, but you don't need to be an expert in coding to be a game developer, at least as a beginner. Then even as an expert, the most important aspect of it is knowing how to debug your code, one, and knowing what each line of code does. So let me give an example. As a beginner, if you tell ChatGPT now to create a script for you to do a Temple One game, it will give you the script, but you won't know what to do with it. You will not know how to edit or change or do make changes to the code. But for me, that will be different because I know what each line of code does. I'll know if ChatGPT is whining me or not. I'll know which line of code I need and the ones I don't. So that's the major difference. The second myth is you need years to make a game. That's also a lie. As I said, we create, at least where I work, we have to create games in 3 days, 1 week, 1 month, crazy timelines for creating games. And it's annoying sometimes, but it is what it is. The only time you need years to make a game is if you are creating a proper triple A game like what's this game called? GTA or Ghost of this thing or Wukong. But for basic 2D, 3D games, if you know what you're doing, it can take you a week, 2 weeks max. Although obviously, if you're talking to a client, don't tell them it will take you 2 weeks. So it will be like setting yourself up. You have to say, oh, it's take a month or 2 months or 3 months just to give yourself a breathing space and proper work-life balance. But for most games you're going to create and for most simple games, you can achieve them in days if you know what you're doing. The third one is only big studios succeed. Hmm. So this one is a little bit tricky for two reasons. One, to an extent, it is true, depending on the region. But sometimes, so you cannot compete with big studios to create AAA games. For instance, no matter how good you are not going to compete with Rockstar Games to create GTA 6. You just kill yourself. But where you can compete is with hyper casual games like Candy Crush, Temple Run, simple games that you can work on yourself and with a small team. But big games like Call of Duty and Co, you cannot succeed where big studios are because you don't have the right amount of funding and community or the right team to create those games. So another myth is games are just for fun. That's not true because you can create games for learning purposes, as we mentioned at the beginning. You can create games to solve healthcare issues. You can create games to serve as onboarding of new staff. So I did one recently where I had to create a VR game for a safety and hazard department for them to identify different hazards in the company's environment and pick them. So obviously that was a game, but the purpose was not for fun. It was to solve problems in that company and also to onboard their new staff. So instead of having to speak to each new employee every time you employ someone, You can just play the game for them or put on a VR headset for them to go through the experience themselves. And that way, they learn even faster. Okay. So why will you try with Unity? These are all things we've mentioned before, but is basically at the beginning is a drag and drop platform. You don't need to write any code at the beginning. You just need to drag things and drop them. It's like using Figma, for an instance. Free access to materials. As I said, there are tens of thousands of content about Unity and game development on YouTube, Coursera, even Unity platform. They have their own Unity Learn content for beginners and intermediates. Creative freedom. You can experiment without coding. There are extensive tutorials, and you can instantly test out your game and play them where you are. So, before I continue, does anyone have any question or any observation if I move on to the next thing? Are there any questions at all?
None from my side.
Okay. All right. For those that were not in the class when I started, let me reintroduce myself. So my name is Rashid, and I create AR/VR games and experiences for MTN Nigeria. And the goal is to, how will I put it, open the market of games in Nigeria. Like if I tell each and everyone here to mention one game created by a Nigerian studio or company, you probably don't know anyone because they're not popular enough for people to know or care about. So that's one of the things that we're trying to solve in our own instance. Why MTN is a telco and selling data and airtime and all that stuff. There's a team somewhere that is trying to create games and AR VR experiences, create games and AR VR experiences to serve the MTN users. So don't worry, you'll see those games in the future. I think right now we've developed games for mostly Children's Day and for university students when we go for MTN events. But we don't have a commercial one yet that people are engaged in 24/7. So right now I'm going to open the Unity platform to show everyone what it looks like. So you'll be downloading the Unity Hub. Oh yeah, so this my wallpaper is actually a game called The Finals. For anyone wondering. Okay. So this is like the Unity Hub's homepage where you have your projects, the games that you're currently working on, and you can install different Unity uh, Unity editors. For example, we're currently on Unity 6. So we'll come back to that later, but basically just Unity releases new editors basically every year and maybe like 2 to 3 per year. So you see, I have a Unity editor for 2022 and I have for Unity 6 also, which just came out this year. So you don't need to download every single Unity version or editor that comes out. You download one and it still do everything you need to do. And as I said, there's Unity Learn for beginners to learn even on their own about Unity programs and packages. So you see, we have a 3D beginner roll a ball game. We have a, this one is a bit advanced. We have a 2D beginner. We have a get started with game jams. get started with the Unity Hub, explore the Unity editor. So even Unity provides its users with tutorials for them to easily get started with their software. Then there's the Unity community you can join. There's the asset store that we just checked. Unity blog, where nobody uses Unity blog like that, yeah. But yes, things like Unity Learn and the asset store. Okay, hi Anthony.
Where can we find the Unity community?
Okay. So there are a lot of Unity community, mostly on Discord. I don't know if you're on Discord, but there's Unity community on Discord. And if you go to the Unity blog and discussions.unity, you can basically put up a question and someone will answer you in 24 to 48 hours, hopefully. But the most engaging one is on Discord. Also, as you know, we have our own Unity community on the African Excel community. So there's no question that you have. If you put it there, someone will definitely answer you. So this is the Unity community where you can just come here, search, ask questions, and people will definitely respond to those questions that you have. Let me go back to the. Does that answer your question, or do you need more information?
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry. I think I'll just share link to those communities afterwards, so you can join them or you can check them out. Look at the questions that have been asked, and you can ask your own questions as well. Okay, so let's go back to the Unity projects. These are the projects I've created so far. This codeless game is for our class. This Impulse Mad is a game for MTN Children's Day. I think Children's Day is on the 27th of May. So we're creating this game for Children's Day for kids to play and they win prizes based on their score in that game. I feel like open up shop, but it's not live yet, so let's just leave it the way it is for now. This amazing track is also for one of the MTN events that will be going for different universities to play MTN Tiles. Okay, this MTN Tiles is basically 2048. I don't know if anybody has played 2048 before. But yeah, that's basically what MTN Tiles is. Pulse, Unomap. This Unomap is an augmented reality game like Pokemon. I mean, open Pokemon for those who don't know what Pokemon looks like. So Pokemon is a very old augmented reality game where you use your phone camera to find 3D objects in your environment. So that's one of the games I'm trying to push in Nigeria currently, for users to find 3D MTN objects in their environment. So for an instance, let's say I place an MTN coin or something in Falomo, you have to go to Falomo to see that content. And once you click on the coin, you get some points that you can use to collect data on the My MTN app. Or for an instance, you can use those points to also buy things from MTN's partners. So let me give an example. If I was to put a coin in KFC now, and you go to KFC to get that coin, once you get the coin from KFC, the plan is you get 30% off or 50% off your order that you made from KFC that day. So basically, we're driving customers to KFC through our platform. So these are things that you need to think about. There are a lot of ideas in this space that nobody has thought of. And it doesn't have to be new ideas, it can be old ideas. So what I mean is these are things that have worked abroad, but nobody has done them here locally. And you can look at them and say, oh, how can I do this thing and bring what has been done outside and bring it to Nigeria and collect more money or collect money for it, basically. So this Pokemon Go is one example. What else? There are a whole lot of examples, but I just can't mention some of them right now. Okay. So first, let me show you how to download the Unity Hub. So basically, all you just have to do is click on Unity Hub on your browser. Click on unity.com/download. Once you click on this, depending on which device you are using, if you are on a Windows device, click on download for Windows. If you're on a Mac, it will automatically show download for Mac. So you just click on download for Mac. I'm sure nobody here is using Linux, yeah, hopefully. But if you're using Linux, it's the same thing as well. Click on download Linux to download Unity Hub. Once you download Unity Hub and you install it, this is what you would see. Then in your Unity Hub, you now have to download a Unity editor that you want to start with. So that's why I said I have 3 Unity editors right now. Unity 6, Unity 2022, 2 versions of Unity 2022 editors. So I think for this course, I would like everyone to download Unity 6, but we'll work on that later. So you download one Unity editor, and once you do that, you can now start creating your Unity project. So to create a Unity project, you click on New Project. When we start fully, I'll go over this process all over again. This is just for the introduction class. So you click on New Project, and as I said, Unity makes it very easy for beginners to start. There is templates for every single thing you want to create on Unity. So it makes your work a whole lot easier. So these are the templates, as you can see. If I want to create a 2D game, there's already a 2D template that I will click that gives me the basic things I need for a 2D game. If I want to create a 3D game, it's also the same. If I want to create a VR game, also the same. A 3D mobile game, you have a template. 2D mobile game, there's a template. Mixed reality game, multiplayer, VR multiplayer, augmented reality multiplayer, different forms of multiplayer, 2D platform. Even there are game templates that you can start with. So you have a first-person shooter micro game template that you can start with. And a cinematic studio. As I said, Unity is not only for making games. People also use Unity to make movies. Same way they use Unity to, they use Unreal Engine as well to make movies. So that may sound confusing, but what I mean is 3D movies or VFX shots. Let me find an example. So when you're watching movies and you see like Godzilla or something, sure they use Adobe effects and all that stuff. But some studios use Unity and some use Unreal Engine. And there are some full 3D animations of movies that are being made with Unity and Unreal Engine. So yeah, you can either use Unity to make games or movies. So this was made by Unity themselves, just to show you how good the quality of the movies you can make are in Unity. 3D movies, by the way, for anybody hold me to Hollywood or Hollywood standard. But yes, this is all made in Unity. So it's not just a game engine. You can use it to create animations and movies as well. although it may be harder to do than on Blender. I'd rather use Blender to create an animation than use Unity to do it. But the point is, Unity can do it, and with our render pipeline, the quality will be very good. Sometimes maybe on par with Blender. At least I know Unreal Engine quality is better than Blender's own, or let's say on par. So game engines have the capability of making animations as well, not just games. So let's go back. So like I said, if you come here now, there are different templates for a beginner to start with. So you now choose whichever one you want to start with, whether it's 3D, 2D, mixed reality, so on and so forth. So so I don't want to start any project today because this is meant to be an introduction class, just to talk about Unity, what you can do with it, pros and cons, and career paths. So if anyone has a question, now would be a good time. So does anyone have a question? Does anyone have a question or suggestion or want to chip in one or two things before I continue? Okay, so I'll continue then. So when it comes to learning Unity, so as I tell everyone, you don't want to focus on the big stuff. You want to focus on the basics. I know everyone says it, but let me just say it again. So what I mean is, the best way to learn Unity that it will not be frustrating for you is to fully learn the basics without the use of AI like ChatGPT and Grok or whatever AI you're used to, or even YouTube tutorials. The best way is to learn basics and practice that basic as much as possible. So what I mean is, if we have a codeless game tomorrow or today, you create other forms of that codeless game by yourself. That's the best way to learn. So if I teach you a codeless game today, try and create your own version of that codeless game again and again and again until you understand how to create it perfectly. So you need to learn the basics again and again and again. Let me use a sports analogy. Which sport should I use? Okay, let's say football, for instance, now. Okay. So if you want to start playing football today, you are not going to start trying to do a rainbow flick or score a panenka or whatever, or try to dribble or something. You start by kicking the ball. So as you continuously kick the ball and kick the ball, let's say for your first 1 month, all you do is kick a football. Then after a 1 month, I'm like, oh, I've been kicking this ball for 1 year. Why don't I try raising the ball? Then you try raising the ball. Because of your knowledge of kicking the ball, you can add it to your knowledge of how to raise ball, then how to score a penalty, how to dribble. What other examples can I use? Let's say cooking as well. You want to start from boiling water or cutting ingredients. So you boil water or you cut ingredients. Let's say you cut ingredients for a month or two and watch other people boil water and cut ingredients. Then slowly you say, oh, you've been boiling water. Why don't I try and boil rice? Why don't I try and add salt? Oh, I've cooked rice with salt today. Tomorrow, why don't I use this and that? Or why don't I fry egg with it? So that's how a learning process works. You learn the basic, you become an expert at the basic of whatever you're learning. Then you can now push that basics into different parts of the learning. So once you learn the basics of Unity, there's nothing else you want to do that you won't be able to do. So what I mean is, if you know the basics fully, you can now say, oh, maybe you want to create a multiplayer game, you have issues, you use ChatGPT or Google in that scenario, it generates code for you, which is fine. But because you know the basics very well, you're able to fully understand that code that has been generated by ChatGPT. So it's not just, oh, you generated code and you dumped it on your platform, it's working, but you don't know how it works. And if there's an issue, you don't know how to solve it. So what I want to do is learn the basics as much as possible. It doesn't matter how long it takes us, whether it's a month or two, it does not matter. As soon as we get over the basics like physics, game objects, and all that stuff, every other thing becomes easy for you to do. So the whole point of this course is for you to fully learn the basics so that outside this course, you now continue on your own. You can say, oh, I know how to do the basics. Why don't I try a game where you can shoot people or a game where you can teleport? So that's you now applying your basics to other parts of game development in short. Okay, so what else have I not covered? Let me see. Okay, so we still have some time. Let me open one of the, okay, let me go back. Okay. So one of the things you absolutely need before starting a game development course is the idea of 3D. Idea of 3D and a 3D software. For example, here, Blender, because you'll be working mostly with 3D objects. Because your game is going to be a character in an environment with lighting, holding a gun or a knife or whatever you want to put in your game. So it's going to be very hard for anyone that does not have knowledge of 3D. But you don't need to be an expert in 3D for it to start. You just need to have knowledge. So you know how to make use of those 3D objects and edit them, basically. So what I mean is, for in your Blender class, you need to know how to change material, change color, move object around, change their texture, add animations to a character and all that stuff. Then once you're able to do that, your journey in game development could be a whole lot easier because you don't necessarily have to create your 3D object by yourself. There are a lot of websites where you can download 3D objects and animations. And I'm going to share some of those websites to everyone here. So let's check some of those websites. So one of them is Sketchfab. So for Sketchfab, there's almost no 3D object that you're looking for that you cannot find on Sketchfab. So let me search for a car. No matter what you are thinking about, someone somewhere has created that content and has added it to this platform or, other platforms. So what I'm saying now is if I need this car for my game, I don't need to create it from scratch. The only difference is maybe I want to change the color of the car or the texture of the car or something. Or I want the car to be topless. That's where my knowledge of 3D and Blender now comes in. So I'm able to make those changes in Blender, then export the 3D objects back to my game. That's why you need knowledge of Blender for game development. If you're part of a game company or studio, they will naturally have a 3D artist. But nonetheless, once the 3D artist sends you the 3D objects, you still need to have knowledge of what the 3D objects are so you can make changes to them in your game. So another example is what else? Even down to environments, you can find them on this platform. So if I want to use a house in my game, I can come here, download this house here. You can find realistic houses or 3D looking houses, it doesn't matter. But the point of your knowledge of 3D is to be able to make changes to this house. For instance, I don't want this house door to be brown. I can change it to black because of my knowledge of 3D. I can change the roof to purple, things like that. I don't want this car in the background. I can remove it, things like that. Even when you're working for clients. So let's say a client asks me to create a game with, let me see, roller coasters. A game with roller coasters. So I can find a roller coaster here. So let's say the client now wants, oh, the roller coaster should have this color or should have my logo on it or something. That's when you need your knowledge of 3D and Blender. So you can make changes to those things. So you don't need to create from scratch. Most times you don't need to create from scratch. The only time you need to create from scratch is if, for instance, now you're working with MTN or a company in Nigeria and they're asking you to model MTN 5G router. There's a high chance you will not find a 5G router anywhere online. So those are rare cases. Or let me even see if I can find a 5G router here. But I highly doubt. So unless the router looks like this, you probably have to model that router from scratch. This is not how MTN 5G router currently looks. So for most things that are generic like cars, animals, other stuff that are consistent, you don't need to start them from scratch. You can just come here, search for them, and download them and use them in your projects. Obviously, this is not advisable if you want to be a 3D artist. This is only for game developers that just want to have ideas of game of 3D to speed up their work processes. So Sketchfab is one to download any 3D object that you want. Some of them even come with animations to make your life easier. Then aside from Sketchfab, we have Mixamo. Mixamo is not, you can download characters there, but people usually use it for animations. So they have starter animation packs. So you don't have to start from scratch as well. So let me log in and show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so as you can see on my left-hand side, I have different animations that I can apply to my 3D character. So I don't have to animate from scratch. So for your game development, most animations you will need, there's a high chance you can find them here on this platform. So it's very rare for you to have to start from scratch for most things, whether it's the environment you're looking for, or it's characters you're looking for, or it's animation, or even templates. It is very hard for you to start from scratch in game development. So unless you want to, but most times you can find assets that will make your journey easier. So in my character now, if I need a character to hold an axe and move around, you can see there's an animation here for that. If I need a swinging animation, there's one here for that. And all I have to do is basically add it to my character and continue my work process. I need a shooting animation. Let me just search for shooting. Yeah, so for my game, I need my character to pick up their gun from their holster and shoot the enemy. I can get the animation from here to play. If I need them to move with their gun, I can get the animation here from there to play. So you can get literally almost any animation you need from here. And another knowledge of 3D is sometimes you need to be able to combine those animations together. So what I'm saying is I may need this shoot rifle animation to start, then I combine it with this gunplay animation. So the character starts by holding a shooting rifle. Then as soon as I click on shoot, they switch to a gunplay animation. Things like that can be done in Blender or even on Unity. So those are reasons why you need knowledge of 3D. But for the assets, there is a high chance that you can find them on these platforms. Which other animation? Even if you need dancing animation, you will find it here. For most things you can think of, you'll find it here. Obviously, you'll not find Amapiano or Zanko or whatever. That one you have to create it by yourself. And the reason for that is there are not a lot of Nigerian creators, animation wise, that create animation and provide it publicly for people to use. So you have to create that one yourself, or your 3D artist has to do that for you. But as I said, for generic hip hop dances, there's a high chance you'll find them here on this platform for you to use in your project or in your game or your animation. So we've touched on Sketchfab and we've touched on Mixamo. So Mixamo also has characters that you can download. Whether you're looking for a mutant character or zombie or just normal human being, whatever you're looking for, Mixamo also has it. But the go-to for characters is usually between Avatar and things like Ready Player Me. As long as we can use Ready Player Me self. So at least for me, for my projects, I usually use Avatar for uh realistic characters. So let me log in. I don't know the people that are here if I can expose random people's faces. So let me open Ready Player Me also. See which one I use. I have an account already now. Let's log in. Okay. I need to change this platform.
You can try sign up. Maybe there'll be a sign-in link underneath.
Okay, because I now have an account, so maybe they've changed their platform, so you have to. Is your game currently available? Am I sleeping? I might need different Ready Player Me websites. But then see, maybe they created a different platform for their avatars. Ready Player Me avatar. Yeah. So for my avatar, as you can see, these characters here were created using real people's faces. I don't know if people can tell, but this is MTN's CIO. Can anyone guess who this is? But it showed me accountable share, but this is meant to be the video anyway. So you take pictures of actual people and you add it to the software to try and generate 3D avatars. So for projects where your client wants to use their real face or to make it more realistic, Avatar is your go-to platform. But if you just need stylish characters, then it's better use Ready Player Me. So this is Ready Player Me, and I can create stylish characters using my pictures or other people's pictures. Choose different dressing materials, head shape, just basically make all round changes. And when you're done, okay, hi Anthony, I can hear you.
Um, please, what's the name of this you just opened? Please, sorry, I got lost.
Okay, so the website here is Ready Player Me. So you can see the link up here, readyplayer.me. So it's a website where you can create stylish characters and you can use your images to create that character. So you just put in your picture and it will generate a character that looks like that picture that you set in. So you can make changes to every single part of the character. You can add glasses, you can remove the beard, add the beard, mustache, nose shape, can change the clothes, the shoes, basically whatever changes you want to make, you can make them here. So people usually use Ready Player Me in their games or on what's the name of this platform? What's the name of the no. Forgotten the name of the platform. But basically, for creating 3D characters, if you want realistic characters, you can use Avatar. I think for those of you who know Babatunde, this is Babatunde's character here. Let's open it and see if it looks like him to an extent. So you use Avatar for realistic characters, and you use Ready Player Me for stylish looking characters. Let me remove the glass. Okay, what happens is that? Okay. So for those of you that know Babatunde, please can you confirm if this looks like Babatunde to an extent? You can see my
Yeah,
screen.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah, so now with the Babatunde 3D character, I'm able to add him to my game and use him as my main character or side character or whatever I want to do. So I've shown you a platform where you can download 3D objects of your choice. I've shown you a platform where you can download animations and some stylish characters. Then two platforms, one Avatar, where you can download and create realistic characters. And the second one, Ready Player Me, where you can also download and create stylish characters. So what else would someone need in game development? Also on Sketchfab, like I said, you can download the environment too. I can download let me see, forest environments, anything you can think of. Someone has created it and added it to the platform. So you don't need to start from scratch. Currently loading, let's give it some seconds. While this is loading, which other platform can I think of? Okay, Unity, yes. So it's same as the Unity asset store. On the asset store too, you can find characters and environments. So if I was creating a game now and I need random people in that game, I can download these assets, fill it to random people that someone has created, and sorry, and just populate them around my game. So that's what most games do. Nobody necessarily creates anything from scratch anymore. We've gotten to a level where whatever you need, there are templates and resources that will help you not start from scratch, no matter what it is, unless the things start becoming like very, very specific. Like in Nigeria now, if MTN says they want 5G router in their platform, that one you're not going to find it online. You have to model it. Or you're looking for money point PS, you have to model things like that. But for generic things, there's a high chance you would find it online and you can use it in your platform. So this is the Unity Asset Store. You can find audio, 3D content, 2D content, even up to VFX. So let's say you want fire particles or whatnot. There are paid versions and obviously there are free versions. So if you're an Odogu or the company you're working for is an Odogu, you can ask them to pay for some of these packages so you can use in your platform. So as you can see, all these effects that are being used in games, like fire, water, lightning, things like that, gas. These things, as I said, you can create them if you want in Unity. But to speed up your development process, someone somewhere out there has already created it. And all you just need to do is get that template and use it in your own game. So you don't have to create from scratch. But it's better if you have knowledge of how to do it. So in case if you need to create your own in a particular style, you are aware of how to do it, basically. But for most things you're going to do, you don't really need to know how to do it. So we have, then next is Unity Learn on their platform. So Unity has their own beginner-friendly courses that you can take for whatever aspect of Unity you want to embark on. Trying to open it up here so you can see the courses available. And they are very easy, simple to continue. So even after this class, you can come over to Unity Learn and take all these courses. So you see Unity Essentials will take you 2 weeks to complete, 12 weeks, 10 weeks, VR development 6 weeks. And they make it very, very simple to follow along. And it comes with video tutorials. And once you are done, you can write an exam and get your certificates. The certificate costs much. I think the certificates are around like $200 to $250, but I mean, it's your certificate, so if you have the money, why not? So yeah, they make it very easy for you to, as a beginner, to get more on their platform and join them in becoming a Unity master. So what else can we touch here? What's time right now? Let me see. 150. If anyone has any question, now would be a good time as well. So let me just open one. Let me open one random Unity project, or let me open the one I have before. I don't want to open this on board. Why not? So let's give it some time to load so we can discuss some little things in Unity's editor or in the Unity engine. Okay, while we're waiting for this, okay, but it's almost done. But for the people in the class, can you tell me what gave you your interest in Unity and what you hope to learn from the Unity course? Is it to be a proper Unity developer? Obviously to make money as well. Like what are you looking forward to? Is it 2D games, 3D games, virtual reality, augmented reality? What are you looking forward to in Unity? What do you hope to learn or achieve with Unity?
Yeah. Hello.
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Okay, okay. I think the reason why I joined Unity is because of the augmented reality and the virtual reality.
Okay.
Making games in the VR and the AR.
Okay. So we'll not cover the augmented and virtual reality in this course, but I'll let you know that the only difference is that the games you create, the only difference is you're opening it on a mobile device through the camera and you open it on a virtual reality headset. So it's still the same process. So whatever you let me open this one. Whatever you learn from this class, it is still very much applicable to your augmented reality solutions and virtual reality solutions that you want to create. So I'll open a virtual reality solution that I created not long ago for AM for MTNC Nigeria. Okay, so this is a project I created in Unity for Children's Day called Impulse. And as you can see, the first thing you can see here is my build profile. If you look on the left, these are platforms where I can upload my games to. So I can export my game as a Windows game or an Android game. I can export my game to the web. I can export my game to, the difference between Universal Windows Platform and Windows is Universal Windows Platform is for your Windows Play Store. So this Windows Store here, if you want to upload your game to Windows Store, where's that store? So this Microsoft Store, that's Universal Windows Platform. So you export as Universal Windows Platform. You want to upload your game to Microsoft Store. I can export my game to a Mac. I can export to Linux, Windows Server, Mac Server. I can export my game to iOS. I can export my game to PlayStation 4, 5. Sorry. I can also export my game to TV and Vision OS. So these are all the platforms that Unity allows you to export your game towards. And for VR headsets, you have to export your game to Android. So if you export to Android, you get an APK file that you can now add to your headset and it will run smoothly with some changes. Okay, so this is the Unity platform and there are different aspects. So on my left here, there's the hierarchy. And the hierarchy is basically where you see the game objects that are currently in your scene. So this is my current scene. Let me find my characters. Okay. So this is my current scene. And you can see this is my main character here, this small boy. And this is one of the NPC in the scene called Madu. So they're not currently playing now. They're just there in the environment. But this is my whole entire scene for the game, where the users can play and move around. So all these game objects, for them to be in this scene, have to be present in this left corner here called the hierarchy. So you can see my main character here. NPC stands for my NPC, non-playable character. For my video, everything that has to be inside your game has to be present in your hierarchy. So that's one. Two, this is my scene in the middle here. Is my scene where I see the visual representation of my game. So this way I can see the environment, the characters, and everything that is in my game. And I can click on the game here to see how my game will look like when I run it. So we've gone through the hierarchy where which houses everything that is in your game, every single game object in your game. Then we have the scene where you can view everything, and the game where you actually play the game on your PC. Then on the right hand side, I have the inspector tab. So the inspector tab is where I make changes to my game objects. So what I mean is if I click on this child over here, as you can see, my inspector tab has changed. So each inspector tab is basically you can make changes to each of your game objects. So if I click on main character, I have these components that in my main character that I can make changes to. If I click on my NPC, I have components that are only for my NPC that I can make changes to. So for each of the game objects, there is different components in the inspector that you make changes to. Then down below, we have my project folder. So my project folder contains every single folder that I'm using in my project. And if something is in your project folder, it doesn't mean it will show in your game. It just means in your project folder. So it's now up to me to decide whether I want to add it to my game or not. So you see this NPC here, I cannot decide to add it to my game, whether I want to or not. So all the files I'm using are in my project folder, whether it's the 3D character, the environment, the animation, whatever it is, they're all in my project folder. Then the console. The console is where I see the errors or the debug statements that I've added to my code. So the console is going to tell me, oh, I have this issue in my code, or there's a line of code that has an error or whatever. It's where you get information while you're currently running your game. So we have the hierarchy where you have the list of everything in your game. You have the scene where you see what is currently in your game. The inspector where you can make changes to what is in your game. And you have the project which houses all the files in your game. Then console where you can see the errors that are in your game. This Unity version control, we'll leave it for now, but it is basically where it's more like GitHub. It's more like GitHub for what's it called? It's more like GitHub for Unity. So for people that have used GitHub, GitHub is where you house your code and your files, so you can easily retrieve them online, and you can make changes from there. So it's like a workspace where you can easily retrieve your files and make changes and collaborate with other people. So once I upload the file to GitHub, my friend that has access to that same GitHub can access that file, retrieve it, and it will appear on his own system. So when you're working in a team, you need to have a Unity version control, so I can easily push my code and whatever changes I've made to my game, and whoever is working on the game with me would have access to those changes and So it's a platform where you collaborate with your fellow developers. So you see, I've created different branches here. I created a branch called tutorial, created a branch called Joseph Dev, Kachi Dev, stuff like that. So it's different repositories where people can open them and view aspect of the game without affecting what I'm currently doing in that game. So let me just do a quick run of the game to show you what it's like. So you click on this button over here to run your game locally. So I'm currently running my game. And as you can see, a video pops up showing me Impulse Go Mad, a Hero Quest. Then if I want to continue, I click on Become a Legend. Then this is meant to be an intro video that we're currently working on, just to show an intro of the game before you know what you are doing or before you continue in the game.
Hello, welcome to Sunday.
So for things like this will be done by the 3D artist. It can also be done on Unity. So you make your choice. Do you want to create your game intro animation in Blender, or do you want to do them on Unity? I guess in Blender it can be easier because you don't need to write any form of code. Just create an animation the way you naturally do it. Or if you have more time, you will do it in Unity. So for this instance, we decided to give it to the 3D artist to do on his own side, send to us, and I play it as a video for the users to use before they begin. So once you are done with the video, things like controls, mobile and PC controls, click on them, and you can now play your game. So we're going to write codes for movement, jumping, things like that. Then you can create dialogue systems for your games, so you can have a conversation with your NPCs. So there are a lot of things to consider when you're creating games. But this is just to show you how game development works. So if you look at this character, I think this character, we found it on Sketchfab. Then we modified it, changed some things like, put MTN logo on the shirt and start 344 on the cap. This environment was found in Unity Asset Store. Let me see if I can find it now. Let me check my Unity Asset Store for the environment. So just to show you that even people that create games don't necessarily start from scratch. You just find templates, merge them together to make their process faster. Especially if you are required to create games in a week, 2 weeks. You don't have time to start modeling character or creating an entire city. Okay, so this is it over here. So I don't know if you can tell, this is the exact same city that I'm currently using for this game right here. I think this is a stadium here. So this is a stadium, and this is the same stadium you can see in this picture over here. So instead of me having to create this environment and city from scratch, I just download this, add it to my project, and make my work faster, basically. What else? Even down to this arrow that is showing you where the character is. You can use a 3D object I found from Sketchfab, search for arrow, and just, okay, so this is the directional arrow I downloaded, and just download whatever you need to make your process faster. What else? Even the UIs. I think where the person that did the UI got the UI element also from Unity Asset Store, added it to the game, and so on and so forth. There's no point in me playing the entire game. Make I just close that. So I think for this class, that should be enough for today. I'd like to hear you guys' opinion or questions if you have any. So let me stop presenting. Let me ask questions. So Anthony, Brian, Tolu, Kausa, and Genevieve, and Tosin, do you guys have any questions before the next class, or anything you would like to know about game development or opportunities or whatnot?